September 11th, 2001. It's a date that's carved into the memory of an entire generation. A day that forever changed the world. We're going to look back at that day, not just to remember the tragedy, but to understand it. How did this happen? How did a nation and the world react? And most importantly, how did ordinary people become heroes in the face of unimaginable horror? The morning of September 11th began just like any other Tuesday in New York City. The streets were filled with the usual hustle and bustle, people grabbing their morning coffee, rushing to work, hopping on the subway. But as for commercial airliners took to the skies that morning, their scheduled flights were about to be violently rerouted. Their destinations twisted into something horrific. These planes were not just flying, they were chosen, part of a meticulously planned, coordinated assault on iconic American symbols. It started with American Airlines Flight 11, a Boeing 767 that lifted off from Boston's Logan Airport at 7:59 a.m., bound for Los Angeles. On board were 92 people, including 5 hijackers. Only 15 minutes into the flight, the unimaginable happened. The hijackers breached the cockpit, seized control, and turned the passenger jet into a guided missile, aimed at the heart of America's financial capital. In those terrifying moments, true courage emerged. The flight attendants, Betty Ong and Amy Sweeney, managed to make phone calls from the back of the plane. They were the first to alert the world to what was happening. Their calm, detailed descriptions of the hijackers, their seat numbers, their actions. The violence in the cockpit provided critical intelligence that would be pieced together later. They were the first heroes of 9/11s, their voices cutting through the chaos to deliver the first report from the front lines of a new kind of war. At 8:46 a.m., the world stopped. Flight 11 slammed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Between the 93rd and 99th floors, the impact was catastrophic. A massive explosion that sent a fireball and a plume of black smoke billowing into the clear blue sky. Debris rained down on the streets of lower Manhattan. Inside the tower, the impact was devastating. Thousands of people were instantly trapped above the crash zone. The stairwells and elevators destroyed, jet fuel ignited, creating an inferno with temperatures hot enough to weaken the building's steel skeleton. For 100 minutes, the North Tower stood, a wounded giant fighting a losing battle against gravity and fire. As the world watched the North Tower burn, confusion and disbelief reigned. Was it a terrible accident? A small plane gone astray? No one could yet grasp the scale of what was unfolding. But the horror was far from over. Unseen by the cameras focused on the first tower, another plane was already hurtling through the sky, on a collision course with its twin. United Airlines Flight 175 had also taken off from Boston. That morning, just like Flight 11, it was a Boeing 767 headed for Los Angeles. And just like Flight 11, it was hijacked shortly after takeoff. Passengers on board made frantic calls to their loved ones, whispering their goodbyes, describing a terrifying scene of hijackers with weapons. For those on the ground, the first sign of this second attack was a dark shape emerging from the sky, banking sharply in a way no commercial airliner ever should. At 9:03 a.m., 17 minutes after the first impact, Flight 175 crashed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center, striking between the 77th and 85th floors. The second explosion was broadcast live to a global audience, and in that horrifying moment, all doubt vanished. This was no accident. This was a deliberate, calculated attack. The sight of two burning towers, to gaping wounds in the New York skyline, confirmed America was under siege. The impact on the South Tower was lower and at a sharper angle, which meant that one of the main stairwells, Stairwell A, miraculously remained passable. This small twist of fate became a lifeline. While many were trapped, others above the impact zone had a chance to slow, desperate chance to escape. They began a harrowing descent through smoke-filled corridors and darkened stairways, guided by the light of their cell phones and the encouragement of strangers. Meanwhile, The first responders, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics were doing the opposite. As civilians fled down the stairs, these brave men and women charged up, climbing floor after floor, weighed down by heavy gear, heading directly into the inferno. They knew the risks. They saw the devastation. But their only thought was to save those who were trapped. They were climbing towards a collapse they couldn't have predicted, embodying a selflessness that remains awe-inspiring. In our next video, we will continue this story, exploring the other attacks of that day and the incredible acts of heroism that took place in the skies over Pennsylvania and at the Pentagon. It's a story of profound loss, but also of incredible resilience. Thanks for watching, and please consider subscribing to continue this journey with us. Just 17 minutes after the first impact, at 9:03 a.m., the world watched in horror as a second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, slammed into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. On live television, millions saw the fireball erupt, confirming the dreadful reality. This was not a tragic accident. This was a calculated, coordinated attack on the heart of America. As both towers burned, a sense of disbelief and shock turned to fear. The iconic New York City skyline was now a symbol of an unfolding national crisis. The nation's defense systems sprang into action. Air traffic controllers scrambled to ground every flight in the country, and unprecedented move while fighter jets were launched to patrol the skies. But for the hijacked planes already airborne, it was tragically too late. The structural damage from the impact and the intense heat from the jet fuel proved too much for the South Tower. At 9:59 a.m., after burning for 56 minutes, the massive skyscraper began to implode. It collapsed in a terrifying cloud of smoke, steel, and dust, raining down debris on the streets below. Just 29 minutes later, at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower, which had been hit first, met the same fate. Lower Manhattan was plunged into darkness, covered in a thick, toxic blanket of dust and debris. The sight was apocalyptic, a scene of utter devastation where two of the world's most famous buildings once stood. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. First responders, firefighters, police officers, and paramedics rushed into the collapsing towers, many making the ultimate sacrifice. They climbed stairs against a flood of evacuating civilians. Driven by a duty to save lives, survivors emerged from the dust cloud. Dazed and disoriented, the city and the world was witnessing both the worst and the best of humanity in a single morning. But the attacks weren't limited to New York City. While the world's attention was fixed on the Twin Towers, another crisis was developing. American Airlines Flight 77, a Boeing 757, had been hijacked after taking off from Dulles International Airport. It had turned back towards Washington, D.C., its target the very symbol of American military might, the Pentagon. At 9:37 a.m., Flight 77 crashed into the western side of the Pentagon. The impact and subsequent fire caused a partial collapse of the building. The plane, traveling at over 500 miles per hour, tore through several of the building's rings. 184 people were killed in the attack, 64 aboard the aircraft, and 125 military personnel and civilians inside the building. The assault on the nation's military headquarters was a chilling statement, demonstrating the attackers' ambition and reach. Yet, even in this moment of national paralysis, the response was swift. Rescue efforts began immediately, with Pentagon employees and emergency crews working side by side to pull survivors from the rubble and fight the raging fires. The attack on the Pentagon underscored that this was a war brought to America's doorstep, targeting not just its financial center but its military command as well. Amidst the terror unfolding in Newark and Washington, a fourth hijacked plane was still in the air. United Airlines Flight 93. This flight, which had taken off late from Newark, New Jersey, was headed for a target believed to be in Washington, D.C., possibly the White House or the U.S. Capitol. But something different happened on this flight. The delay on the tarmac meant that by the time the hijackers took control, news of the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon had already reached the passengers. Using earphones and cell phones, passengers and crew members were able to call their loved ones. Through these heart-wrenching final calls, they learned the truth. Their hijacking was part of a larger, suicidal attack. They weren't just hostages. They were on a guided missile. Faced with this horrifying reality, they made a choice. They decided to fight back. A group of passengers and crew, including Todd Beamer, Mark Bingham, Tom Burnett, and Jeremy Glick, formulated a plan to storm the cockpit and retake the plane. Beamer's last audible words, relayed by a phone operator, became a national rallying cry. "Are you guys ready? Let's roll." The passengers fought valiantly against the hijackers. The cockpit voice recorder captured the sounds of their struggle, the fight for control of the aircraft. Their heroic efforts prevented the terrorists from reaching their intended target at 10:03 a.m. Flight 93 crashed into an empty field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, killing all 44 people on board. These ordinary citizens became extraordinary heroes. Their selfless sacrifice saved countless lives and protected one of the nation's most important symbols of democracy. The story of Flight 93 is a powerful testament to the resilience and courage of the human spirit in the face of pure evil. The attacks of September 11, 2001 left an indelible mark on the world. The loss of 2,977 innocent lives was a profound wound, and the emotional scars still remain. The events of the day changed everything, from airport security to foreign policy. It was a day that united the country in grief and patriotism. Complete strangers helped one another, communities came together, and nations across the globe offered their support and solidarity. Reflecting on 9/11 reminds us not only of the pain and the loss, but also of the incredible bravery that emerged from the ashes. It's a day to remember the first responders who ran toward danger, the passengers of Flight 93 who fought back, and the countless acts of kindness and unity that define the aftermath. Their stories are a vital part of our history, lessons in courage and resilience that we must never forget. If these stories have moved you, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue to share these important moments in history. Like this video and share it with others, so that the memory of the heroes and the lessons of that day can live on. Thank you for watching and for taking the time to remember.
सैंडविच कुछ और कर लेते हैं। यार बड़ी प्यारी लग रही है। हैं? क्या कर ले अभी भी कड़ी? यार देख ले फिर क्या करें। यार तू अपना कर, अपना कर। एक सैंडविच कर लो, हाफ कट होता है। अच्छा वही होगा मैक्सिकन सैंडविच, पनीर नहीं ये क्या है? ये कितने